Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the studentloanjustice.org live stream. My name is Alan Collins. I'm founder of studentloanjustice.org. You can see there. We are the oldest, largest, and really pretty much the only true grassroots citizens group fighting for student loan justice. We've been around since 2006. We've been featured top story on 60 Minutes and in Newsweek and New York Times, Los Angeles Times. We've written books, we've given speeches, we've done all kinds of things. Suffice it to say, we know a few things about the student loan problem. For the first 15 years of our existence, we were fighting very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. However, I am here to report to you good people that it is now a catastrophically failed lending system by all rational metrics and measures. So even before the pandemic, 80%, 4 out of 5 of all federal student loan borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans. They were either in default, forbearance, deferment, otherwise delinquent, and that's like 65 or so percent, or they were paying, but their balances were going up, and that's like 15%. So 80% of all federal student loan borrowers were pretty much headed for default. Now, the default rate for subprime home mortgage loans was less than 20%. So we are probably 4 times higher than the subprime home mortgage default rate. Now, I don't know what you call that, but I think if you're even a little bit rational, I think you would call that, as I do, a catastrophically failed lending system. Lending systems fail from time to time. Look at the subprime home mortgage fiasco. Look at the S&L crisis in the mid-'80s. So this does happen from time to time. Quite frankly, I think it was fated to happen with the federal student loan program. After all, bankruptcy protections and statutes of limitations were taken away uniquely from federal student loans. You could have predicted this. And in fact, we've been predicting it for many years, like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 years. Only recently, when the pandemic hit, have we crossed the threshold, and has this lending system verifiably crossed the threshold into catastrophic failure. So, folks, it may be too late to return bankruptcy protections to these loans. In fact, I think it is too late. When you have 55 million people in the country who either have student loans or are co-signed on them, and 80% of those people were never going to be able to pay, that's like 44 million people for whom these loans, both federal and private, have become incredibly threatening. This is the worst big government lending scam, and it is a scam, that this nation has ever seen, and in fact, on Earth, in world history. If the Department of Education was a bank, it would be the largest bank on Earth. That pretty much says it all. One other little factoid for you. We now know and can say that the default rate for the class of 2004, who were only borrowing like $12,000 or $13,000 on average, whereas today's students are being compelled to borrow something like $40,000. Well, the default rate for the class of 2004 is 40%. So, like I said, by every rational metric or measure, it is a catastrophically failed lending system. We fought very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protections for the past 15 years, which would have stabilized this lending system. But, folks, if bankruptcy protections were returned tomorrow, and they must be, they should be, because there are, and I'll get into that in a minute, I think that would only compel 20, 25 million, maybe more, people to file for bankruptcy. Now, do we really want to force 25, 30 million of our citizens into bankruptcy for the crime of going to college? Come on now. That's just ridiculous. In an average year, less than 1 million people file for bankruptcy for any purpose. So I think this would probably really only succeed in overwhelming the bankruptcy courts to the point of seizure. So really, guys, and it's not just us saying this anymore, these loans have got to be canceled. This lending system is done. It's toast. Put a fork in it. It's time to shut it down, get rid of the loans, and come up with a better, more fair way to finance higher education in this country. So glad you're here. And by the way, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them out. There's a lot going on, but your voice is very important, and I'd much rather respond to you than being a talking head up here. So lots of announcements. Let's see. Right now, our petition that we started in March calling for federal student loan cancellation, not by Congress, which that's what everybody was doing, but rather by executive order, which we pretty much started that conversation, by the way. Very happy to report it's up to 837,000 signatures. We have at least one media request right now. Currently, we have one from CBS News. The guy's name is Christopher Brooks, I believe. If you look on our Facebook group, either probably at the top, it'll be, I think, an announcement. You can see how to get a hold of Christopher. He's just looking for normal people with a lot of student loans that want to talk about their situations. So that's great. We published an article at medium.com, and I did link this on this live stream here right now tonight. It is very important that we get this article circulating around the zeitgeist, folks. We touched a nerve, let me just say. And let me back up for a minute. So Congress really can't cancel loans. It's just nonsense. They have to raise money to pay for loan cancellation. That's not going to happen. And whatever Congress might pass, it will get bureaucratized to death by the Department of Education. That's just nonsense. It's a non-starter. But the president has all the executive authority needed, vested in him, actually the Secretary of Education, through the Higher Education Act, and believe it or not, language even predating the Higher Education Act, going back to like 1958, Secretary of Education and, by extension, the President have all the executive authority needed to cancel loans without needing to go through Congress, without needing to raise money to pay for it, which on its face is a very stupid thing anyways, because remember, folks, 85% of all student loans are owned directly by the federal government. That means that the taxpayer already paid for these loans many years ago. And they didn't pay much, by the way, of the $1.5 trillion in outstanding federal student loan debt. My best estimate, and nobody knows what this number is, but my best estimate is that less than a third of that is actual unpaid principal. Not only that, the federal government has been making a very handsome profit on this lending system dating back to 2010 when Obama federalized it. But even before that, many, many years, in fact, decades of White House budget data confirm that the federal government has even been making a profit on defaulted loans. That statement right there, if you're at all financially savvy, you should be like spitting your coffee right now. Be like, what? No way. There is no way that the government or any other lender for that matter can make a profit on a defaulted loan. That just doesn't happen. You know, credit cards are thrilled to get back 5 cents on the dollar or 5 or 10 cents on the dollar for a defaulted account. Well, I'm here to tell you, go to the White House budget, look at the supplementary materials, look at Appendix 4, and that may have changed actually in more recent years, but you will see that the recovery rate for federal student loans is greater than $1 on the dollar. So you can look at the list of all the federal loans that the government makes or guarantees. FEMA loans, ag loans, small business loans, veterans loans, all the loans in the federal loan universe. And you will see recovery rates of like 5 cents on the dollar, 15 cents on the dollar, 20 cents on the dollar, 22 cents on the dollar, etc. All well below $1 on the dollar. But then you come to the student loans category and you see, oh, $1.22 on the dollar. Oh, $1.10 on the dollar. Oh, $1.05. I think there was only one loan category for which it was less than $1 on the dollar. And even still, it was like 90 something cents on the dollar. So, you know, and make no mistake, the federal government loves that. They can't lose in that sort of an environment. And by the way, the only reason they have been able to get blood from that stone is because they took away bankruptcy protections. They took away statutes of limitations. So you can't run, you can't hide, not to mention the federal government has draconian, like worse, stronger than the mafia, collection tools to get that money. And, you know, this is a defining hallmark of a predatory lending system. And that's really what makes this lending system so scary, is the fact that the federal government sits atop of this predatory hornet's nest. This lending system's got to go, folks. It's a national threat. So, thrilled to tell you that the petition that we started now has 837 or 8,000 signatures. We have obviously started something. And who knows where this is going to end up, but nobody was talking about student loan cancellation by executive order almost before us. And since Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer introduced a Senate resolution calling for this, it's really taken off. But as predicted, as expected, the entrenched interests in Washington, D.C., I call it the student loan swamp. And I have been calling it the swamp since way before Donald Trump was president, let me just say. Like since 2006, we've been calling it the student loan swamp. They are freaking out. We have touched a nerve. And we are now seeing the claws come out, the knives come out, the disguises fall away from these swamp creatures. Many of them not just conservatives, most of them conservatives, but many of them sort of neutral Washington, D.C. think tanks. All of a sudden, the masks are coming off the swamp creatures. This includes people, and we have to name them and shame them, folks, because these people ought to be ashamed of themselves. People like Adam Looney, I believe the name is, from the Brookings Institute. People like, I don't remember his name, but there's a piece of the Wall Street Journal that just came out. People like him. People like Jason Furman, a liberal, supposedly, a Democrat, an Obama appointee to the Council of Economic Advisors, if I'm not mistaken. Democrat, I guess, or liberal, or whatever you want to call it. And on and on and on. I can be talking about dozens of articles that have published just in the past 10 days talking about how, the president can't cancel loans by executive order. It can't be done. It won't stimulate the economy. It'll be a giveaway to elitist, rich, educated kids. It won't stimulate the economy. It's not fair. Stuff like that. We are catching it left and right. And it's really a thing, I would say a thing of beauty, because finally we are seeing the true colors of these people who heretofore have been like, oh yeah, we're fighting for the students. Oh yeah, right? And let me just say, all of these people are on the wrong side of history. They are defending, promoting, perpetuating, fighting against the people and for the biggest and worst big government lending scam, and it is a scam, and now it's a catastrophically failed lending scam, but it's the biggest and the largest in U.S. history, but also world history. Their mothers should be very proud of them, not. These people ought to be ashamed of themselves. Like I said, the list is long. I just named a couple of them on the conservative side. I would say also people like, I don't know, just there's so many douchebags out there. Kat Timpf, K-A-T-T-I-M-P-F, of Fox News. on and on and on. It is a feeding frenzy of the swamp trying to protect this indefensible, unconstitutionally predatory, catastrophically failed lending scam with a capital S. So shame on them. We will prevail, but we're going to need your help, folks. I'm telling you. We have been buried by, pardon the French, bullshit in the past. And this is the biggest load of nonsense, I'll just say, that we have ever come up against in the history, in the 16-year history of our organization. So the truth will rise to the top, but we have got to fight for ourselves. And remember, folks, you should be very proud to be fighting on our side. The Founding Fathers are on our side. The Constitution is on our side. History is on our side. All of the citizens should be on our side, including the conservatives. You know, the people saying, hey, I paid my loans, you need to pay your loans. You borrow money, you got to pay it back. If they actually knew anything, and most of those people are strong conservatives, very right-wing leaning people. If those people actually knew about the student loan issue, and some of them are starting to learn because I and others on our group have convinced them, they are coming around to joining us and being on our side. Because make no mistake, this is the worst big government lending monstrosity the country has ever seen. No true conservative could support this lending scam. And the most important thing I'll say about these haters, these knee-jerk conservatives, so-called conservatives, maybe we'll call them wannabe conservatives, I would call them useful idiots, because by wagging their finger at the borrowers, like the media is evoking them to do, they are actually only serving to defend and enable not only the worst big government lending monstrosity the country has ever seen, but also the colleges that financially reap the reward of the perpetuation of this lending system. Now, we don't take any strong views on whether the colleges are good or bad, but I can tell you that conservatives like Trump country, etc., they hate the colleges. They think the colleges are turning this country socialist, if not communist. So, as you go forward, if you get into conversations, hopefully friendly ones with friends, relatives, coworkers, or otherwise, you may want to point out that fact that while they wag their fingers at the people who are being wrecked by this big government college feeding lending scam, they are only serving to perpetuate and help those two entities, big government and the colleges. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. And if this country ever actually does go socialist or communist, they will be first in line for the useful idiot medal. They need to turn in their conservative cards because they've been played for fools. You might want to say something like that to them. They will think on it, and they might disagree at first and pop a gasket. But once they think on it for a few hours or days, hopefully no longer than that, they will come around to agreeing with you. So, word to the wise, if you want to help us battle these haters, at least on at the ground level, that's what you will do. And you might point them to that article that I posted up here or down there, the medium.com. The whole point of that article is to make the conservative case for canceling student loans. It's a very, very strong piece. In fact, maybe one of the strongest that I've ever written. And I've written a lot. So do that. Folks, I'm getting close to 20 minutes here. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it there at that. Suffice it to say, folks, we are really kicking ass. We're getting a lot of media interest. This could go either way. The Biden loan cancellation proposal is crap. It's nonsense. But everything right now as we speak is in the policy blender, guys. Nothing is set in stone. So what we do, what I do, but more importantly, what you do out there to push our petition, to give as many claps on that article that I published there or there. As many people as you can get on the petition, as many news organizations as you can convince to report on our side, the borrower's side of this argument, is just so absolutely important, you know? I hate to steal cheesy quotes from movies, but as John Connors in like Terminator, 3 or 4 said, you have no idea how important you are. It only takes one well-written email, one sort of lucky phone call, one well-placed comment on an article to get that one reporter thinking about this topic in the right way. Getting a news organization to report on it, getting a politician to change their mind on this quickly changing issue. So, you know, we're all we've got, folks. You know, we can't expect the media to fight for us necessarily. What we're seeing now is that the entrenched interests in Washington, D.C. are doing everything they can to shut us down and perpetuate this catastrophically failed instrument of enslavement upon not only us, but tens or hundreds of millions of people to follow in our footsteps. You should be proud to be fighting this fight. You should be aware that, you know, we are the early pioneers in this battle, and that's just a fact. And I'm not just saying me; I'm saying everybody watching this, everybody in our group. You know, we've only got 16,000 people in our group, so what you do matters. We're all we've got right now. But at the same time, really, I think we're all we need. We've got the truth on our side. We've got the founders on our side. Hopefully, we've got other people in high places on our side. But come on, guys, we've got to get this done, and it starts with you. So keep us posted as to your progress. Check back here on a daily basis. As I said, things are changing very fast. So tell everybody you know about the petition. Tell everybody you know about this group right here where this stuff started. And let's get this done, guys. Let's get it done. What we do between now and January 20th is just absolutely critical. So I will leave it there at that, folks. Good luck. Godspeed. God bless everybody.